Baselode here with an update, but really I want to keep pitching that whole clay alteration idea. It's amazing what we've seen from it, and I just want to get that idea across to some people. But very quickly, for the people who are interested in the assays, we lowered our total down to 33% from 36%. So since the last video, we've had that 3% decrease. So we're still pending a third of the total samples that have been submitted, running on 26 to 29 weeks. Also affects the ACKIO the ACKIO drill results to come out, and the remainder of the hook alteration areas that we're looking for. That clay alteration area being holes 16, 17, we have the results, but we want to see more from that clay alteration holes 21, 22, 23, which results are still pending. Not a common thing to find clay alteration like this. Not in an environment that's supposed to be nothing but crystalline rock. This is obviously not crystalline rock. Can't emphasize the amount of fluids that have gone through this area. That's a vast amount of fluid system, and it's from what we've seen in that last video. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you go back and watch it. But the fingerprint of the uranium system has been left behind, and we see that with the lead 206, lead 204 isotopes. Looks like there is a centralized corridor that seems to be pointing down. Having the results from hole 21 would help further alleviate that, or would help further promote that idea. But it's not only the lead isotopes, just the textures from some of these rocks. This is hole 23. We're waiting on the results from these, but just looking at the textures alone, I've seen this. It's that Rough Rider. These are from an amazing presentation that I'll actually show more from that presentation that was given on the initial Rough Rider discoveries. But those textures that you see from Rough Rider that I've just thrown up there, those redox fronts, you see that in the rocks that we have in this clay alteration area. But if the lead isotopes are telling us that, well, there's no uranium here, but it used to be here, then that tells us everything has moved. And that's what we're very excited on and want to keep pushing that idea. This is hole 16 background. It's all clay altered. All of those rocks are clay altered. I don't know if your eyes can find the freshest hematite in this area, but if they can't, then I've highlighted the area right here in between those two red bars. And to zoom in on the area, if you can see what I mean, that brighter red, it cuts through the white, it cuts through the purple that was there previously. So it is the youngest event, but that was also the fracture that had the highest elevated radioactivity in this drill hole, 310 counts per second. It's nothing in the way of what we would be looking for to say, hey, we've got a deposit. But as a Pathfinder, it's absolutely amazing when you incorporate another element into it. So we had 41 ppm uranium. Very excited that is elevated in itself. Low thorium too, very low thorium in this, but 0.31% heavy rare earth oxides. And 95% of the total rare earth oxides are heavy rare earth oxides. So just remember those numbers: 0.3 heavies and 95% of the totals are heavies. Those are ratios that I need to bring up again a few times further down in this presentation. It's not a highly talked about thing, but there is this weird connection with uranium and heavy rare earths more than light rare earths. I can't explain it myself, but let's just let's look at some uranium deposits to help see if that is a legit thing. Then you can make up your own mind whether I think the sample from the clay alteration area is encouraging or not. Hole 119 that we released from ACKIO, Pod 6, it's sorry, we released in October last year, and we had 1.5% over 1.5 meters, and that is highlighted there in the red rows. Within that 1.5 meters, we also had 0.2% heavy rare earth oxides. Now we used the 0.05% heavy rare earth oxide cutoff in this drill hole, and we ended up with a 6 meter interval that had 0.12% heavy rare earth oxides, which correlates with the stronger mineralization within this area. If we look at the ratio of heavies to total rare earths, then we're seeing between 76 to 92%, very similar to that clay, zone. Let's look at just heavy rare earth oxide percentages. Anything greater than 0.05% is showing as a disc on this, and anything that is below that grade does not show up at all. And just highlighting anything that we would consider to be heavy rare earth mineralization. You can see it there in pod one. Pod one is what we believe is our richest pod as it is. It's also the shallowest, but there's a heavy rare earth element association with it. You can see a little bit too in pod two. It's kind of clustered there, but I don't know if your eyes have caught that little thing sitting in between two zones of mineralization. That is one little sample from one drill hole in between two zones of mineralization. Not too dissimilar from what we're looking at in hole 16 with that rare earth little intercept as well. But that's why we think it's a pathfinder. We don't think that we're directly on the deposit yet. It's that pathfinder to go with the lead isotopes and the alteration in itself. Back to that Hathor presentation that had the drill core. We're looking for positive linear correlations associated with uranium in this. So everything on the x-axis, which is the one going horizontally, that's uranium percentage, U308. Anything on the y-axis, so the one going up and down, those are all different elements. And we're looking for a line that would basically start in zero and go towards the top right-hand corner of each of those graphs. So kind of like what we see in lead. It's not the strongest correlation. What is the strongest positive linear correlation in all of these elements are total rare earth oxides, not moly, not copper, not nickel or lead or boron. It's total rare earth oxides. Bet you never saw that one coming. I didn't actually until I rediscovered this presentation, which also brings us further down into a larger database of wealth of information that was all compiled by Dr. Charles Norman. This is an amazing document that he put together back in 2014. Fantastic work. I like the part that is captured here. In Saskatchewan, exceptionally rich xenotime mineralization was discovered during uranium exploration in the Athabasca Basin at a number of locations, including the McLean Lake uranium deposits, where the mineral locally yields up to 10% yttrium oxide in clay-rich zones. Sounds very familiar. However, the larger xenotime occurrences appear to be spatially dissociated from the uranium mineralization. So they don't have a direct relationship to uranium itself. We can make the case for pod one and ACKIO, but there is that subtle correlation, and you don't need a lot of grade to it. What we're really looking for are those ratios. The next two tables, these horizontal red rectangles are highlighting the one of those ratios where the heavy rare earth oxide concentration or percentage of the total rare earth. So we're looking for anything over 75%, 75 to 100%, that ratio. And those are all highlighted in those rectangles. We're looking at some of the Midwest and McLean sandstone types. Bizarre that we're seeing sandstone correlations, but it exists. Same ratios with the Cigar East basement, though. So we're seeing cigar style. McArthur River Pod 2. We're seeing rock types from there that have similar ratios of rare earth elements. And then same with Millennium. These are large systems, and a lot of these are basement systems. So they have those same the possibility for all of those same type of fluid conditions. If we look for that second ratio where we're looking for just the percentage of heavy rare earth elements greater than 0.3%, which is what we saw in the sample anyway, what highlights now with these two correlations is Cigar East, the basement rocks of Cigar East. Okay, we all know Cigar is a huge mineralized deposit. So it's nice to see that correlation, but then also with McArthur River Pod 2. That's it. Out of the deposits on this slide, we're seeing rare earth correlations that are similar to the two world's largest high-grade uranium deposits. Absolutely amazing. That's why we're excited, because we think that there's more to this. We think that what we've drilled is on the periphery of something so much larger. I really hope that's the case. When we look at both the same ratios, we can see that we're seeing basement rocks similar to Moore Lakes, Shea Creek system rocks, which again is very encouraging, especially with that overlap in Shea Creek, another 100 million pound system of rocks. Very encouraging to see this sample coming back with uranium in it in a in an isolated occurrence in an area that is indicating that we've seen fluid systems carrying uranium away. That's the interpretation. We've taken some of the images from Dr. Norman's work and plotted up this sample to see where it would fit, just out of curiosity, and thought we'd share some of that with you. There it is. That's where the sample would plot up. So it wouldn't plot up in that green cluster of rocks, which are APS minerals. That's your typical monazite. That's your typical basanzite, things like that. Uh, Apatite is showing up as the purple crosshairs, and again, those are the type of minerals we want to not be incorporated with for this. We want to be within this uranium cluster, which is this huge cluster of circles, and we fit nicely in there. Looking at another graph, we plot up over here in kind of an overlap between number 5, which are intrusion associated. We don't think this is intrusion. We think this is more unconformity associated uranium, which is that number 4 cluster. And if you reinterpret the data there, you can actually see that there's reason to believe that the cluster number 4 would encapsulate the sample. Just looking at another graph, vein types wouldn't be bad if it plotted up in vein types. Intrusion associated, we really don't want the intrusion association. That's granite types. We want the unconformity related, which is this one, and again, plots up nicely. I like this one. I really like this one. There's a lot to digest. So to simplify it, anything that's red, whether it's a circle or a triangle, means that it has over 10% uranium. We plot up here. We can say that cluster of data is up in this area. Don't know if you can see it in the background. There's this McArthur River and this purple dashed line. So I've kind of just traced it up in here. But yeah, that's where the McArthur River high grade samples plotted up with with these same elements or same conditions. Our samples are right on that cusp. It's right on the periphery, speaking to the potential for this really large high grade system. This is where we drilled on the target. Still wide open. Lots to go on. 3 holes on this line. We're still waiting on the last one, which is also the deepest and furthest to the east. And we're waiting on holes 22 and 23. Hole 23 was the pictures of what I consider to be redox mineralization, or at least remobilized redox conditions. The textures are there. I'm going to assume that the lead isotopes will come back and tell us that, hey, the fluid system was here. We've moved again. It is such an encouraging system to follow up. We think that the target is actually just underneath where we drilled. So we've drilled the 3 holes in that fence, and we have to follow up underneath the target's at depth. Fortunate thing is we've already cleared the area. We just fly the drill back in there, land it in the cleared area, and we're off to drilling. Everything's all simple from there. We believe it's a big system. We believe it's huge. If I haven't said that enough, like that fluid system speaking to something. It is, there are too many things that I have not seen in my career that all just correlate and all jive. We've got another video that we're going to demonstrate just the clay speciation. Because again, that's something else. It just says, hey, don't ignore me. I'm a huge alteration system. I need to be explored even further. And that's what we want to do. Baselode's part of the OR group of companies. Thanks for watching. I've certainly made forward-looking statements, and I will continue to make them because it's such an encouraging area. If you want to reach out, that's how to get in touch with us. Thanks again.